Okay, so as promised, we're done with the statistics now for Unit 2, and we're going to talk about merchandising. And there's two stages that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about manufacturer to some sort of distributor. And then from the distributor to a retailer. And then, of course, from the retailer to some sort of a consumer. What we're going to talk about tonight are these two stages, getting from a manufacturer to distributor or distributor to a retailer. Really, the process is pretty much the same from one to the other, so we're just going to assume it's one continuous process. So the first thing we're going to talk about is something called a trade discount. A trade discount is something you get from a wholesaler. If you're a retailer and you're buying your merchandise to resell, certain wholesalers will give you incentives. It might be last year you purchased more than $100,000 worth of product from us, so this year you're going to get a 3% discount all year, or something like that. So you might get, let's say you get that 3% discount. So now you order items that have a list price. Now, list price, of course, is the full amount without any discounts. So let's say you have items that have a list price of $240. What are you going to pay? Well, there's two ways we can look at this. And we looked at this back in the first unit when we talked about percent increase and decrease. We can find 3% of the 240. If we cross multiply and divide here, what are we going to get? $7.20. There we go. $7.20 would be the amount of your discount. So the amount that you're going to pay, your discounted price, is going to be the $240 minus the $7.20. So $232.80. Make sense? So that is what's referred to as the net price. Now, as we discussed again back in Unit 1 with our percent increase and decrease problems, we could find the 3% and subtract it like we did here. Or we could say, hey, from 100%, if we get a 3% discount, what percent's left that we have to pay? 97%. Very good. So we could find 97% of the 240. If we cross multiply and divide there, we're going to come up with $232.80. In fact, what we tend to do, tend to take a shortcut. We tend to go back to what we referred to as the rate method of percents. We're going to use it a lot when we talk about interest as well. Instead of cross multiplying and dividing in the proportion, we know that 97 divided by 100 is 0.97. And just do 240 times 0.97 is 232.80. The reason we use this method, the rate method, is because it's not uncommon to stack more than one trade discount on top of each other. Sometimes called a chain discount. And all it really is a series of trade discounts. So you might see a discount listed as 12,810. What does all this mean? Well, the first number is generally what your standard discount is. Maybe you had a high enough volume of items purchased last year or last period. You're now going to get a 12% discount on everything you purchase. And let's say you fall into a special category. So because of that special category, you're going to get an additional 8% on everything you purchase. And perhaps that distributor is having a special on a certain product. In order to push that product, they'll give you an additional 10% discount on that particular product when you purchase it. So there's all sorts of reasons why you could have more than one discount. Now, does this mean we have 12 plus 8 is 20 plus 10 is a 30% discount? No, we don't. They don't add the percents together. They take them one after another. Let me show you what I mean. This is where we go back to what we were talking about before with using that complement or 100 minus. If we have a 12% discount, what percent are we left paying? Yeah, 100 minus 12 is 88. So we're going to write that as a decimal, 0.88. Times, if we have an 8% discount, we're left paying 92 or 0.92. If we have a 10% discount, we're left paying 90 or 0.90. If we take those discounts one after the other, we're just going to multiply them up. 0.88 times 0.92 times 0.9 gives us 0.72864. What this is sometimes called the net decimal equivalent or the single, write it down, the net decimal equivalent. Good evening. Or sometimes called the single net equivalent. Or net price equivalency rate, and many different names for it. What this is describing is what percent of the list price is the net price. So that is describing the net price. Well, we started out talking about a discount here. How would we describe the discount? Well, the discount could be found by using a single discount equivalent. Which is found by using the same principle we found up here to get the 88, 92, and 90. If our net price is 0.72864, the discount is going to be 1 minus 0.72864, or 0.27136. That is our single discount equivalent. What do those numbers mean? Well, let's take an example. Let's say you purchase items that have a list price of $1,200. And we had that 12, 8, 10 discount, just as we showed. To find the net price, we will take the list price times that single decimal equivalent, or net decimal equivalent, I should say. So that was the 72864. So we're going to take $1,200 times 0.72864. Which gives us $874.37. That's the new net price. To find the discount, we're going to take that list price again times the single discount equivalent. So it'll be the $1,200 times 0.27136, which should give us $225.63. Does that make sense? So let's do at least one more example, and then I'll let you guys try one. So we're going to purchase merchandise as a list price $1,650. with the trade discount listed as 862. Let's first of all find the discount. Well, to find the discount, I need that single discount equivalent. To do that, I go off of this. Where do I start? Perfect. 100 minus 8 is 92%, so 0.92. Then, okay, we take 100 minus 6 is 94, so 0.94. And then, you got it. 100 minus 2 is 98, so 0.98. So we multiply those together. 0.92, 0.94 times 0.98. 0.847504. Okay, now what? Is that what we want to use? No. We need to do 1 minus that to get 0.152496. That is what we need for finding the discount. So how do we find the discount from that? 1650 times, 0.152496. Gives us 251.62. And then let's try to find the net price. What do we use for the net price? All right, so the 1650 times the 0.847504, which is going to give us 1398.38, correct? What do y'all think? Not bad? Okay. Well then, let's let you try one. The answer is we got discount is 251.62. Net price is 1398.38. So we're purchasing merchandise with a list price $2,100. And our trade discount is 9.7. Go ahead and find the discount and the net price for me. Let's give it a shot. Where do we start? Perfect. From the 9 and the 7, we get 0.91 times 0.93. Giving us 0.8463. What next? So 1 minus the 0.8463 gives us 0.1537. And then the discount is found by .1537. So it's 322.77. And then the net price. Perfect. 2,100 times the 0.8463, which is going to be 77, sorry. 0.23. What do you think? Yes, sir.
How come when you add those two together, they don't have to 0.13?
They should.
They don't.
They should.
2019.
Mine had up 2,100.
On my, what was the last one?
1777.23. Does it work better? Okay. Sometimes it is a couple pennies off because there's round off errors, but usually it should come out.
I got it.
Yes.
Why do you subtract?
Okay, very good question. What I'm really doing there, what's really going on is this is 84.63%. And what I'm really doing is I'm subtracting it from 100% to get what the percent of the discount is, but we're leaving it as decimals as rates, so we're doing 1 and 0.84 instead. Any other questions? Okay. So, now that we have that out of the way, we can move on to the next step. Invoicing. Now, when they sell an item to that retailer, generally it's not a cash transaction. It's not, not like when you go to the store, you grab what you want, you hand them cash, and then you leave with it. Most of this is taking place over a distance. So the merchandise is being shipped from the supplier to the retailer, and then there's some sort of an invoice being sent with that tells the retailer how much and when and how to pay. So we're going to look at some of the terms that would be on an invoice. First thing that's going to be on an invoice is a date. This is usually the date in which items are shipped. So the date that supplier puts the items on the truck and sends them out is usually the invoice date. Sometimes it might be the day before if it's processed late in the day and it doesn't get on the truck until morning. But usually it's that day it gets shipped. But we're going to talk about in a little bit something called modifiers that will modify that invoice date and change it to something else. Other terms that'll be on there are shipping. The biggest question with shipping is how much and who pays. In some cases, the supplier is going to pay for the shipping, especially if you have a large enough order or whatever. In other cases, the buyer or the retailer is going to have to pay for the shipping. Keywords that get used here. Free on board is the key phrase. Free on board describes who doesn't pay, where it's free. If it is free on board, shipping point, well, where's the shipping point at? That's at the supplier, right? So that means it's free at the shipping point. It's free to the supplier. So that means the buyer pays. If it is free on board destination, that means it is free at the destination, so the seller, the supplier, pays. In most cases, a shipping company will not ship without payment. They don't do COD or cash on delivery anymore. They need to get paid up front. So in many cases, even though it is free on board shipping point, which means the buyer is going to pay the freight, often the seller will what they call prepay the freight. In other words, the buyer will have to reimburse. Okay, so next step. Finally, payment. Probably the most important part of the invoice, the payment. The payment will include the amount and the significant periods. Two periods come into play. There will be a discount period. You ever hear the commercials, 30 days, same as cash, or 90 days, same as cash? Well, same happens here. Since you're not actually at the supplier purchasing the things, you cannot pay for it at that instant. But a lot of times they'll provide for, hey, if you pay in the first 5 days or the first 10 days, we'll count it as cash and we'll give you a small discount for that. And then, of course, there's just the credit period At the end of the credit period, the invoice must be paid in full, or there's going to be interest charged to any balances. The notation that is used for this is often something like this. What this is saying would be read as 210 net 30. The end would be read as net. And what that is saying is that there's a 2% discount if paid in the first 10 days. The net amount is due at 30 days. So let's just look at these periods for a second. Let's say we have an invoice that is dated March 14th, and the terms are 210 net 30. We draw out a little timeline here. The beginning of the timeline is the invoice date, or the effective invoice date if there's a modifier. Here, that invoice date is March 14th. From that date, how many days does the discount period extend? 10 days, which would put us at March 24th. Very good. 10 days from the 14th. During that time, you would receive a 2% discount if payment is made. Next, we have this net 30. That 30 days goes back to the invoice date. 30 days from March 14th would be... March always has... Yeah, that's only February. Yeah. March has how many days in it? 31 in March. So it's going to be April 13th. To help you count these days, by the way, there is a table in your book. I believe it's page 396, if I've got the right page number written down. And we will use this table a couple of different times throughout the last couple units here. And there it is. It is on page 396. The way this table works, you look up March 14th in the table. So you look on top, you find March, you go down to the 14th on the left side, and it says 73. So that means that March 14th is day 73. Well, 10 days from that would be day 83. You can double check that in the table. Day 83 is March 24th. Adding 30 to 73 would give us 103. You double check that in the table. 103 is April 13th. So our dates that we have in there are correct. That to me comes out a lot easier instead of trying to count in months, because every now and then you'll run into a net 60 or something like that where you have to go through 2 months, and you can mess up those days in a hurry.
It's a leap year.
Well, then you have to account for it.
Okay.
Of course, that only works if it's, you don't have to worry about that if there's February in there. Yeah.
How come when we do I do a lot with invoices, when the price of gas is down,
Yep.
as it is, why we don't see the dividends back from that and the shipping? Our shipping costs are the same.
The shipping costs are the same.
They're the same, unless we buy in bulk.
Part of that is because it's still, even though the price is more, it costs the same to put it on the truck and haul it. There, a lot of times you'll see a fuel, if gas prices go up, there'll be a fuel surcharge added on top of the shipping prices.
I mean, you if I order from Texas here, Minneapolis, here, it's the same. I mean, it doesn't make any
It's a
sense.
flaw in the system. It's just their shipping price.
That's probably why they keep it standard, because Texas is farther.
They try to keep it as close as possible then. But yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would send it from Texas for the same price they would send it from Minneapolis. But
Yeah, that's just the way it goes.
yeah, it's just a flaw in their system. But they do have, when diesel prices and stuff go up, you'll see an extra fuel surcharge put on top of that. They don't change the price of the shipping, they're just a surcharge put on it. Same with like your airplane tickets. They don't increase the price of the airline ticket, but you'll buy a $189 airline ticket and then there'll be a $60 fuel surcharge on it. Okay, so let's have you guys try one. So an invoice that is dated on August 28th, and it is listed as a 1.5 net 60. So I want to know what is the end of the discount period and what is the end of the credit period. So the discount period is going to end on September.
What is it, count day?
Counting day. Oops. Yeah, so September 2nd. Sorry. 2nd. You got it. Because if we look up August 28th, that would be day, what, 240? So this would be on 245, which is the 2nd. And then the end of the credit period is October 27th. Very good. So we can kind of combine all this together then with, so our invoice date is July 29th. The invoice amount, $3,200. Our terms are 310 net 30. How much is paid if paid on August 7th? So I'll give you a second to figure that out. See what you come up with. So as we go through this, what is the end of our discount period? It'll be August 8th. Well, we paid on August 7th, so we don't even need to figure out the end of the credit period because we're in the discount period. What discount are we going to get? 3%. 3% if paid in the first 10 days. So what that means, now we could find 3% and subtract it, but it would be easier if we did this. Instead of finding 3%, if we have a discount of 3%, what percent do we pay? 97%. So we're going to take the $3,200 amount times 0.97, which is going to give us 3104. Perfect. How many of you came up with that? How many of you would have if I gave you more time? How many of you have no clue what we're doing? Okay, that's good at least. Let's try one a little bit different. Let's say our invoice date is on December 19th. The amount $5,400. The terms now this one's a little more complicated. That is read 15215 net 60. What that is saying is there's a 1% discount if paid in the first 5 days. Oh, sorry, I got that backwards. I was going to say, scratch that. Should be 25115. Thank you. So a 2% discount if paid in the first 5 days. 1% if it's paid in the first 15 but outside of the first 5. And the net price is due in 60 days. Let's start out by setting up our timeline. This timeline starts on what date? December 19th. And then our first day after that is how many days? 5 days, which would be December 24th. Nobody's working, yeah, out of luck. So then after that it would be day 15. So we've got to go back to December 19th. Here's the thing though, if we go to our chart and we look up December 19th, we're going to get 353 days. December 19th is 353. If we add 15 to that, what do we get? Well, we get 368, correct? How many days are there in a year? 365. We've gone past the end of the year. So to reset it, we have to subtract 365 to get day 3. So yes, that does tell us that this is January 3rd. Then we have to do the same for the end of our credit period down here. We have the 353 plus how much? 60, which would be 413. And then we have to reset it. Subtracting 365 will give us 48. Day 48 is February 17th. What do you think?
That's all you're asking.
That's all I was asking at this point.
Oh, at this point.
I still have to finish the question now, though. How much, if paid, on January 2nd? What discount do they get on January 2nd? 1%. So we're going to do what with the 5,400? Times 0.99. Where did the 0.99 come from? 100 minus 1 is 99%. So that's going to give us $5,346. How are we doing so far? Good? Okay. Oh, we're good. The 99 came from 1% discount. So 100 minus 1 is 99%. If you have a 1% discount, you're left paying the remaining 99%. So I'm just turning that into a decimal is 0.99. Does that make any sense? Not yet.
Well, I don't know why was it combined with 50%?
Well, because we didn't.
Because it's been a time period?
Yeah, they didn't make it in the 5 days, so they don't get the 2%. So they're only getting the 1%. Yeah. And even if they made it within the 5 days, they would only get 2%. They don't add them together and give them a 3%.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So on this one, the date is May 12th. The amount $4,900. Seller prepaid freight of $600. So that would be on top of the $4,900. Terms 210 net 30. Paid on May 19th. Question number 1. Do they get the discount?
Yes.
Yes. 12th to 19th, it's pretty easy to determine. That's just 7 days. That's less than the 10. So they're going to get what for a discount? 2%. Does that mean we take 4,900 plus 600 is 5,500 times 0.98? Say no. Why would we say no? No. Yeah, the buyer paid $600 for freight. You need to reimburse them that full amount. There is never a discount on freight. The discount only applies to merchandise. So we take the 4,900 times what percent? 0.98, which is going to give us what, 4,802, I believe. And then to that, we still have to add back in the freight of $600. So $5,402 is what needs to be paid on May 19th.
What circumstance did the buyer, the seller, prepay shipping? Have you ever seen anything?
Well, in retail, it's, for you guys, you have set shippers that are on contract, so it's not a big deal. They know they're getting paid. But in retailers, if you're using like a yellow transport or a UP transport or something like that, where it's
Okay.
it's a corporate shipping company, but but they're not contracted specifically to that company, they're not going to put that on the truck and haul it until they're paid up front.
Okay.
So let's say I have a date of March 23rd, an amount of $2,800. Once again, the seller prepaid freight. $400. Terms. $210 or $25 net 30. Paid on March 27th. Find the amount. I'll pause it and I'll let you guys find this. So in this one, do they get the discount? Yes. So what do we do? 2,800 times 98% or 0.98. Okay, which is going to give us 27.44. Then what? Plus the 400 shipping. So 31.44. Yes, that date is still eligible for the discount.
Till midnight.
Basically. End of business day or whatever. Yeah. A lot of times, it all depends on this. Sometimes they go by postmark or whatever. Well, we said there were modifiers. Oops, you look confused. Sure. We said something about modifiers. Let's say you have a large item that you've purchased and it's going to take a long time to ship it. If it's going to be on the truck for 8 or 9 days and it's a $210 cash discount, you don't even receive the item before the discount period is pretty much up. So they do something like this. So our invoice date is July 18th. The amount is $10,300. You have a shipping tracking that says it was delivered or received on July 24th. The terms are 210 net 30 ROG. So obviously ROG is the part here that's different. ROG stands for receipt of goods. What that does is it modifies the effective invoice date. Our whole timeline here will not start on July 18th. It will start on the day that the goods were received. So it modifies the invoice date to July 24th. Since here, in this case, it took 6 days to ship it, they don't want to give you just a 3 or a 4 day discount period. They want to make sure you get that full 10 days. So they modify the invoice to that date. So now the discount period, that 2% discount period, is going to end on August 3rd. Good. I was going to put down July 34th. That's doesn't come around very often. And of course then, the end of this is all going to be on August 23rd. You have to pay up by August 23rd. So all that has been different here, when you see the ROG here, that means that we ignore the actual date of the invoice and we use the date that the goods were actually delivered to the buyer. So for this one, if it were paid on August 1st, which would have been outside of the discount period if we'd have gone with July 18th, but since we have the ROG modifier, it is in the discount period, they're going to pay 10,300 times 0.98, which is going to give them $10,094 is their balance. Let's have you guys try one. So let's say the date on this is May 27th. An amount of $8,600. Seller prepaid $900 in freight. Delivery confirmed on June 3rd. Terms 310 net 30 ROG. Determine last day for the discount and the amount paid if on that last day. So what's our last day to pay and get the discount? June 13th. Good. If we pay on that last day, how much has to be paid? Okay, let's walk through it. Let's make sure we get the same number. 8,600 times what? 0.97. Why 0.97? It's 3% discount, so it's 97%. Very good. So 8,600 times 0.97 is 83.42. Sound right? And then we add 900. 9,242. Looks good. Is that everybody got? Close enough? Oh, yeah.